Everyone. So it's Luna here, and I felt intuitively called to come on and do a video. And I have to say, it's absolutely terrifying to come on and do an intuitive video. I remember years and years ago, I used to do presentations, not often, but I did sometimes do presentations in an office. And I used to be terrified then. And I laugh at that now because I think, well, at least I knew what I was going to be talking about. I haven't got a clue here. I don't actually know what I'm going to talk about. So I had intuitive guidance to come and speak and share personally about my disappointment with the US election that I know many people felt, but I also know many people were delighted and elated even by the result. And it just kind of was something that I wanted to speak on because I can see, I respect the people who were elated, and I also respect the people who, like me, were devastated, and I respect everything in between as well. But I wanted to speak really about the state of the world and our world, the calibre of world leaders that we've got at the moment. So a kind of honest personal share that when Donald Trump was elected, even though I'm in the UK and that's the US, I was devastated. I've got to be honest, it hurt. It actually hurt. And I know he's not leading us here in the UK. And for what it's worth, I'm not keen on the leaders in the UK either, which I'll get to in a minute. But, it hurt me. Like, I actually was hurting. And I'm just being honest about this because I think we need to speak about it instead of hiding behind telling other people that they're wrong because they like him. I'm not here for that. I'm not going to tell anybody that they're wrong. Who's to say I'm not wrong? I might be wrong. And I think what happened for me, particularly as a survivor of abuse and rape, I was frightened because, a judge has come out and clarified that he is in fact a convicted rapist. I think the wording of his conviction was a little bit ambiguous, as it often is with legal things, but a judge has come out and has clarified that he is a convicted rapist. And we know that there's also a stream of sexual assault allegations that I personally believe. I know some people think, oh, he's going to take down, the cabal and all the bad guys, and so the bad guys are just getting people to make false allegations and things like that. And everybody, again, I respect anybody's right to believe what they believe. I'm not here to tell anybody that they're wrong, but I don't believe that. I personally feel that you can tell from his character what he's capable of. That's my personal belief. And so because I have that belief, it was very, very frightening for somebody like that to be elected into such a huge position of power. We all know that, the presidency in America is a real position of power in the world. And that's frightening. But I also think it serves, because I think it did rock a lot of people. I've certainly seen an awful lot of posts on my timeline and spoken to people who've all felt the same and they've felt rocked by it. They were in a state of shock almost by it. And I think that tells me that we're in for some big change. Because, when we have the rug pulled from under us, it's always a wake-up call. And in my opinion, it's a call to action. I think the days of hiding behind, oh, well, it doesn't affect me, and oh, well, it's politics and I don't like politics. The days of that are over. We are all going to have to pull together, or we're not going to make it through. And whether you believe that he's the saviour that has come to save us all from the bad guys, or whether you really can't stand him, or anything in between, I think the one thing we can all agree on is that the current leadership system that we have in this world of governments doesn't work. It's not working. Probably has never worked, in all honesty. I mean, I don't know a time when it's worked. Has it ever worked for you? It's never worked for me. I mean, I'm a person that sits in some of the marginalised groups that get hated by these leaders. You know, I'm a bisexual woman, I'm disabled, you know, because I'm autistic, I've got ADHD, I've got 3 different learning disabilities. And I'm chronically ill. They don't like that either, do they? Not allowed to be long-term sick. Because that costs money and it doesn't feed into the capitalist economy that patriarchy loves. So I'm in the marginalised groups. Now, I know I'm not a woman of colour, which would make it my life considerably worse than what it is already. But I am in some marginalised groups. And no government that we have ever had has even come close to serving me as a human being. It's done the opposite, actually. I'm going to be really honest here. It's done the opposite. My life has been made harder by the people in charge, the governments who come up with these crazy policies that they come up with. And we all know that these policies are not about the people. They're never about the people. And that's why I firmly believe we cannot continue to have governments. Now, as I said, I came to do this intuitively, so I don't have an agenda. I don't have answers. I wish I did, but I don't. I've got ideas, and I'm happy to share those. But I don't have answers, and I don't think any of us do at this stage. But I really feel we are entering a time where very quickly we're going to have to come up with answers, even if the answers are imperfect. Even if the answers aren't good enough yet. Because we are going to have to override what governments are putting in place in the world. Because what they're putting in place in the world, as we keep repeatedly seeing, hurts people. And we can't have that. We cannot have people in positions of power who hurt people. We've got to dethrone them. We've got to start a revolution. A revolution of the heart. And we need to come together as community and as one world and stop relying on people in power who hurt people, who harm people, who are blatantly only ever out for themselves. The only way to take that power away from them is to come into our own power. And we do that by mobilizing into communities, into groups. It can be online at first. and coming together as one people. I mean, I don't know about you, but when you think about any great leaders that you've ever known in your life, maybe you had a great boss or even a great teacher, or maybe your parents were great, somebody that led in some way in your life. Think about the good ones. Were they anything like the people we have in power in the world at the moment? I bet the answer's no. I bet they were nothing like that. Maybe you had great, brilliant grandparents or even siblings or somebody that led you in some way. Were they ever nasty? Were they greedy, selfish? Did they lack empathy? I bet they didn't. Because if they did, they wouldn't be a good leader. Did they go around hurting people? Say nasty things about people when they were in their most vulnerable state? Try and garner groups to be against other people? Did they do any of that? They can't have done, because they wouldn't have been a good leader if they did. I think if you look back on your life, that anybody that even came close to being a leader in your life, and maybe they weren't perfect, so maybe they did a few things that weren't what you would associate with a perfect leader, but I bet the one thing they did was they were kind. They had empathy. They were wise. And we don't see any of that in our current leaders. They're not demonstrating that. They don't have it. And we've got to stop pretending that they do. Stop pretending that they're the saviour that's going to end all the pain in the world, and that they're going to stop the bad guys, save the children. Because you want to know who's going to do that? We are. Not them. They've only come to show you the way. And the way that they're going to show you is by getting it so fucking wrong. So wrong that we will have no choice but to pick up the pieces and to find the courage to step out of comfort and convenience, out into the world as one people together, and be the change that we want to see. And years ago I founded, I didn't end up running it because I wasn't very well, but I founded a charity, and our tagline was, "Together we are the change." And this charity group was very much about this. It was, where do you see a problem in the world? Well, don't sit around complaining about it, go and do something about it. It's hard to imagine that we are going to have to fix this together. It's much easier to project onto these leaders that they'll just clean up the mess and sort it out for us while we go on with our nice little lives. That is not going to happen. That isn't how this is going to play out. You are being called to action. And hey, I get it. We've had years of kind of sheltering and hiding and just being on Zoom and on computers and not really having to be out in the mess of the world too much. I firmly believe the next phase is asking us to actually get out there. You know, I always think about, I'm obviously not tribal now in this lifetime, but we all know that many, many lifetimes ago we were all in tribes. Everybody was in a tribe. And we know that within the tribes, the elders, the people who led, had to pass initiations. And these were very, very hard initiations that they had to pass. You know, we've all heard of the Vision Quest, sent out into the jungle with all the poisonous plants and deadly animals and in the dark of night with nothing to survive and having to use intuition and wisdom and skill set to survive and come back to the camp, to the tribe. We've all heard of that. The leaders that we have now in power in this world, and I'm not just talking about governments, I'm even talking about, you know, CEOs of large organizations, all of those, anybody that's in a position of power, I'm talking about them. They have not passed the initiation. They haven't passed the initiation. And yet here they are, supposed to be our saviour, supposed to be going to make it all right again. I mean, in a way, we're parentifying them, projecting the parent onto them. They're just human, like us. Maybe not so like us, but you know. But that's the one thing we've got in common. You know, how difficult life is. And what I want to see is more kind people leading. And I tell you something I really want to see. I've wanted this for ages. Have you noticed that kind people rarely have loads of money? I've noticed that. And I think how different the world would be if kind people had loads of money. So those of us that are kind would give it to good causes and we'd help other people out. I've just recently been helped by a lovely, kind friend. And she's bought me a heated blanket, which I'm very excited to receive. And I really look forward to being warm for once. This person isn't minted. You know, I don't see anybody minted rocking up to do that. That, like that lovely, kind friend who's done that for me, that's the kind of person I want to see rich. Because they won't hoard it. They won't, you know. They'll do good with it. They'll help people out that aren't quite there yet, you know. Look after the vulnerable, give to good causes, might even set up their own charity. It's what kind people would do. And that is the kind of person that I want to see now having power in the world. And when I talk about power, I'm not talking about a skewed dynamic where they have power over people. I'm talking about an empowerment in their own power. You know, you might think of that as being guided by God. I tend to think more like in terms of the divine within us, soul. You might like to think of it as human nature, whatever your beliefs are. But being basically led by love and strong morals and ethical values. We don't have that right now in our leaders. And I think it's about time that we all stop pretending that we do. And acting so shocked when they do things that aren't in anybody's interest other than their own. Things that hurt people. Things that are going to make life worse for people, you know, unnecessarily worse for people. We have to stop acting shocked. Why are we shocked? They're not here to save us. They're not here to fix the world. We are. So I didn't know what I was going to come and talk about really, other than, you know, my own disappointment that I felt. And I guess this is where it's led me to, just this knowing that no one can hide behind expecting somebody else to fix the world any longer. It's our jobs, it's what we're here to do. And I really think it's going to get worse and worse until we all stand up and do that. Now I'm talking about, you know, I mean, you can do it in small communities, of course, but I just think of us as one world. I'm not thinking of us as here in the UK, we need to do this, you know, I'm talking about the world. Someone you know said to you, my family is being killed, the children are being bombed on the streets by this bully who lives near us. Would you want to help them? You absolutely would. But then I look at what's happening, you know, Gaza, Lebanon, and I know there's a lot going on in the world as well. I'm just using this as one example. I know there's an awful lot of places, you know, I mean, this is genocide, of course, but there's still other war-torn places, and I know that. But you wouldn't say, well, you're not coming here. You're the reason I haven't got enough bread. You know what I mean? You just wouldn't. So we have to stop thinking of people who live in other parts of the world as not being part of humanity, part of us. We're all each other's friends. And that is the way forward. Coming together. One world, one big family, one humanity, one love, one direction. Not the group. And that's the way this is going. So we can stay in denial for longer and longer and let it get worse and worse and worse. Or we can pick up the mantle and start running with it. So I really hope this has helped. And if you did join me, thank you. I've seen some people on and off in the viewers thing. Feel free to comment. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Yeah, and just thank you for being here, and thank you for listening and taking part. Okay, lots of love. Take care. Bye.